Right, so now I've finished with whatever's left of Dan Hardy at this point. It's time to move on to the MMA news because so many big stories have came out over the past 24 hours. We have got Khamzat Chimaev calling out Colby Covington. We've got Mark Zuckerberg renting out UFC Vegas 61, something that we haven't seen done before. We've also got some fight announcements as well that have been made, including Gregory Rodrigues versus Brad Tavares. We've got Kelvin Gastelum versus Nassourdine Imavov, and we've also got Armand Tsarukyan versus Damir Ismagulov. Amazing fights. I'm going to get straight to it and break them all down in today's video. Let's start straight away with some of the topical news, which is Khamzat Chimaev calling out Colby Covington. Make up your mind, Khamzat Chimaev. Is it 185 or is it Colby Covington? I feel as though Khamzat Chimaev has had a long think to himself and thought to himself, you know what, I've worked my way to the top of 170. Why would I give up now? Because I believe that he knows if he moves up to 185 and his body becomes conditioned to making 185 pounds, he's going to have a much harder time at ever being able to return to the 170 pound division. And I also believe he thinks he has some really good matchups for himself at 170 pounds. And I have to agree with him. I would favour him against a lot of those top guys in the welterweight division. And I do believe if he does make weight well, and he has a real good replenishment process after making weight too, and he gets that down to a science, I think he can really beat these top guys. And I think he will become a champion at 170. But I think he's thinking to himself, you know what? I could go to 185, but if I go up now, I'll never want to come back down to 170. So I think he's going to give himself his chance at 170. And if he wins at 170 and gets the belt, then he's going to move up to 185. Or if he loses at 170, then he can use the move to 185 as a fallback point and say that he lost because of the weight cut, and this time he'll be much better at middleweight. So I like this matchup between him and Colby Covington. If he was trustworthy to make weight, Khamzat Chimaev this is, because we know Colby Covington doesn't really cut too much weight. We know he's going to make weight no matter what. He's one of the few fighters that fights in their natural weight classes. If Khamzat Chimaev was trustworthy to make weight, I think that could be a main event of a pay-per-view. It might not be the biggest main event of a pay-per-view, but with the right undercard underneath it, Khamzat Chimaev versus Colby Covington is an amazing main event of a pay-per-view, and it would sell a lot of money because of the drama that would be in the build-up of that. But I feel as though they can't do it. Khamzat Chimaev isn't trustworthy enough. I also feel like they're going to use it to sort of build up some champions on an already existing card. I could see them doing this in London, I believe, as the co-main event of Usman versus Edwards 3, the trilogy. I could also see them doing this in December if Covington wants to remain more active, because I've just heard that Dana White said that they're not going to be doing Prohaska versus Teixeira in December for the main event of the December pay-per-view. So that either means that Jones versus Miocic is being done, but if Jones versus Miocic doesn't get done, I could see them risking Chimaev Covington. I don't know if they're going to, but I feel like this fight needs to happen soon. Maybe there's going to be a January ABC card at some point in the new year as well, so it could be the main event of that instead. But I think a trustworthy move would be to make this the co-main event of Usman versus Edwards, the trilogy. That way you have a backup option if anything happens to any guy in the main event of that one. And Chimaev's from Sweden. Sweden geographically is a lot closer to the UK, London, than it is to America, of course. And I think that would make sense. So I like that matchup. Let's move on because there's a lot more to cover. So Mark Zuckerberg rented out UFC Vegas 61, according to Mackenzie Dern. I don't see why she would lie about this. Dana White even said that for a reason they can't have any media members at UFC Vegas 61. So whatever. The UFC is making a little bit of money. Apparently it'll be like a small party or something along those lines at the UFC Apex. But, you know, honestly, I see a lot of people saying, like, go away, Mark. God, Mark. L Mark. And all this type of stuff. It's the Dern versus Yan card. Listen, if he was doing this for, like, a real, legit UFC Apex Fight Night card, I'd be annoyed that maybe some, like, real MMA fans couldn't really get in there. I know he might be an MMA fan, however, I'd be annoyed that some more variation of hardcore MMA fans couldn't be in there to watch. But if they're going to buy out any card, they're going to lose money by putting on Dern versus Yan Xiaonan, I would imagine. So this is their way of making money back. They're renting out the whole arena to Mark Zuckerberg. And it's just another headline that they can make in the build-up to the weekend card, because no headlines are going to be made because that card is weak, to say the least. It's going to be a fun card. I truly believe that. However, the name value on the card is not going to generate interest before the fights themselves begin. So, Mark Zuckerberg's doing that. Very interesting turn of events. We also have 3 fight announcements, beginning with Gregory Rodrigues versus Brad Tavares on January, the Rio card. The pay-per-view in January 21st, UFC 283, a massive, massive fight. At this point, I feel like I'm going to side with Gregory Rodrigues. I don't think Brad Tavares has the power in his hands to deal with Gregory Rodrigues. Now, I do believe he has the takedown defense necessary to not get put away there. But the fight that he just had against Dricus du Plessis, if there was a fight where I saw a fighter use up their chin, it's probably that fight. He took thunderous shots by Dricus du Plessis in round 3. He got his nose shattered in round 2. Gregory Rodrigues, I know he is it's a bit weird that he's turning around so quickly, but in hindsight, this is going to be in 4 months. So he wants to stay active. He's been given a chance at a ranked opponent. It is only a cut over the eye. Other than that, he got wobbled at one point. So it's not like he's coming off a real brutal war over 3 rounds where he took massive damage. But he got wobbled. He got hurt. He got cut open. The worry is, if Tavares reopens that cut, that's a real tough cut to fight through. And Tavares is a master at being consistently good over 3 rounds. He's not going to gas out and quit like Chidi Njokuani. So, to be honest, I'm going to trust in Gregory Rodrigues because I just feel like he's on a different level. And I think you're going to have to melt him with a solid pace to put him away. And I don't think Tavares has that. And I'm worrying about Tavares' chin. He showed a good chin against Dricus du Plessis, but Gregory Rodrigues seems to hit real hard for that division. And I can just see Tavares taking some big shots, and I don't know how many of those he's going to be able to take before Gregory Rodrigues puts him away. So I think this is going to be an amazing fight no matter what, a fight of the night regardless. But I'm going to bet on Gregory Rodrigues coming out the other end. There's going to be a time when Tavares is no longer in the middleweight rankings. He's been in there for a very long time. But I reckon this is one of the times where we're going to see him slip out of him. So Gregory Rodrigues gets that one done. We've also got another fight in the middleweight division. Kelvin Gastelum versus Nasruddin Imavov is the main event on the 14th of January. Very, very interesting. Very interesting to me that this fight is being made. I guess Kelvin just wants to get back in there, and this is the big fight that they have for him. And also you've got Nasruddin Imavov just... At this point, he's probably going to be willing to take on anyone who's in the rankings as long as it's a ranked opponent and not a non-ranked opponent. So this will be number 11 versus number 12 in the middleweight rankings. So I guess this is a step forward for Nasruddin Imavov. However, I don't know. I feel like Kelvin Gastelum has only just recovered from his knee being destroyed. So we're going to see how what condition he's going to be in for this matchup, because this is a tough one for Kelvin, man. It hurts me. I want Kelvin to succeed in the sport, but man, this is just such a tough fight. However, I don't know who I'm going to pick because this is a 5-rounder. And Nasruddin really slowed down against Joaquin Buckley. He really slowed down. And that's why I picked Buckley to beat him. I thought Buckley was going to have him slow down a bit and then start to tee off and have his own moments, but... Imavov survived that, but this is a 5-rounder in a main event. And I think that might be why Kelvin Gastelum is taking this fight, because he saw Joaquin Buckley put the pressure on Nasruddin Imavov in round 3. And I think Nasruddin Imavov is one of those fighters where he has to exert a lot of energy to win and be winning in a fight. He has to dominantly grapple you. He has to land massive big shots constantly to keep you at bay. And if Kelvin Gastelum survives those shots, which I have to imagine he will, and if he can survive the grappling, which if Joaquin Buckley can, I have to imagine he will, I think Kelvin might take this one in a round 4 or round 5 TKO against Nasruddin Imavov. I was not confident in the grappling ability shown by Nasruddin Imavov against Joaquin Buckley. I really wasn't. Sorry for clearing my nose like Jared Cannonier. It wasn't a good look for him now to go into a main event. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. We move on to another fight that got announced, which was Arman Tsarukyan versus Damir Ismagulov. An amazing fight. An amazing, amazing fight. I'm going to really clear my nose. Give me a second. I did not just snort stuff off of my desk. But Arman Tsarukyan versus Damir Ismagulov. An amazing matchup in the lightweight division. I didn't think we were going to be getting this one. I thought we were going to be getting, you know, a Damir Ismagulov versus Jarlin Turner. But apparently, I guess Jarlin Turner's not going to be fighting this year. He said he wanted to come back in December, but here we are. I guess this is a much better matchup for Damir Ismagulov. And Arman Tsarukyan, you have to respect him. He's ready to take on all the tough guys that he needs to get him back on track. And honestly, Damir Ismagulov, in my opinion, should be ranked. He is number 12. Never mind. He is ranked. Well, there you go. He's ranked number 12. Arman Tsarukyan, number 10. And I like Arman Tsarukyan's mentality. He's not going to sort of be sad about it. He's getting right back in there. He definitely should have beaten Mateusz Gamrot in their fight. Very close fight, though, but that doesn't excuse it. He should have won that fight. He won it very clearly. And if he wins this one, he's going to be looking at, you know, the loser of Dariush Gamrot. Probably not Gamrot if that case, because I don't think they'll run it back that quickly. But if Dariush loses to Gamrot, they could do Dariush versus Arman Tsarukyan. They could do him versus the loser of Poirier versus Chandler if they're still looking to take fights. So I like this move from Arman Tsarukyan, looking to get right back in the mix, right back up the rankings. I think this is the good mindset to have. And I think he beats Damir Ismagulov. I really do. Damir Ismagulov keeps a very high guard. And he keeps his hands up very high. He has a very... You know, Piotr Yan is the bantamweight Piotr Yan because he is Piotr Yan. Damir Ismagulov is very similar at lightweight. And then you've got that sort of like Dennis Tululin style at middleweight as well. It's that very certain style where they keep a very high guard. But I think in higher weight classes, you're a lot more prone to those heavy shots like the body kick rather than at bantamweight. So I think Arman Tsarukyan's body kick is going to be money for him here. And I think Damir, as an older guy compared to Arman Tsarukyan, coming off that war against Garam Kutseledze that he barely got a decision winning, I feel as though Arman Tsarukyan is going to get this one done. His stand-up is arguably the best part of his game, I guess, at this point. He can offensively grapple, but I don't think anything will really be done in this matchup to do with the grappling. I think it'll be sort of like negated. But I've got to imagine that Arman Tsarukyan, as the younger, more improving guy, is going to take from that loss and it's going to spur him on to get better. And I reckon he's going to get this one done against Damir Ismagulov on the feet, because I think Damir Ismagulov, very boxing heavy, doesn't throw a lot of knees or kicks. I think Arman Tsarukyan's body kick at range is going to be a massive weapon in this fight. He could maybe move in some grappling, but the only weakness he really had against Mateusz Gamrot was, as we got into the later rounds, he started to slow down a little bit and the grappling of Gamrot was a little bit more effective. But there's not going to be those later rounds in this fight with a 3-rounder on December the 17th. So I'm siding with Arman Tsarukyan in a decision. But that's an amazing fight. And you know what I'm glad about? I'm glad MMA fans in general are coming around to these fights. Because there was a time a long time ago, or maybe like a couple of years ago even, when these types of fights, I would be so excited about them and I wouldn't see any excitement anywhere. But I feel like MMA fans in general are becoming less casual and more hardcore. So they're really appreciating the Arman Tsarukyans versus Damir Ismagulovs of the fight game. You know what I'm saying? They're appreciating it way more. And that's why it's got 6,000 likes on Full Violence in the past 3 hours. So I'm really glad that they're doing that. Really, really glad. And Bo Nickal won on the Contender Series as well. Had a great performance there. Absolutely dominant. I think my reaction is somewhere out there. My live reaction to watching it happen. The triangle transition was so nasty that he went for. Shows a real confidence in his ground game to be able to pull that kind of stuff off. And yeah, Bo Nickal's going to be a massive problem. But I guess I'll break something down at some point on a second channel or something like that for him. But yeah. You know what I thought of the other day? First of all, Buckley versus Curtis has been made. I'm picking Buckley to win that one. And I'm also picking Lewis to beat Spivak in that matchup that got made as well. Montel Jackson was a very good bantamweight prospect and he's just disappeared. Wouldn't be surprised if he failed a drug test, but Montel Jackson, Wagwan. What's good, man? I don't understand what's going on with him. Also, I've just seen this in front of my face here at MMA Island. Joaquin Buckley. I wanted Khamzat in December. Wasn't satisfied with the Chris Curtis matchup. Like, it's just so silly to me. It really is. And even when Bo Nickal called out Khamzat Chimaev, like, I think Buckley commented on the post something like, nah, man, you're stealing my money fight. You're unranked at middleweight. You're coming off a loss. What entitlement did you have to the Khamzat Chimaev fight? Very strange mindset from Joaquin Buckley. Extremely strange mindset to have. Like, no real understanding of what position he's in his career. You don't make those types of shots right now. You just, like, work your way back up and then start making the shots again. He's talking like he just beat Nasruddin Imavov when you lost. So, interesting. But I'm going with Arman Tsarukyan. I want to see Khamzat Chimaev versus Colby Covington. I'm going with Kelvin Gastelum in a 5-rounder. I think that's going to be a great one. And he'll be an underdog as well, I imagine. I'm going Gregory Rodrigues as well. Tavares, his chin gives out once again. And Zuckerberg's going to Zuckerberg and flex his money and rent out UFC Vegas 61, which I don't mind because it's Dern versus Yan. If anyone's going to buy out any card, let's just let it be that one and move on with our lives. At least it made a headline, which neither of the fighters in the main event will do this week. Well, never mind. Dern made the headline by mentioning him. So there we go. It's all happy. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Respects for Dan Hardy. He must be going through a tough time right now. So, yeah. See you later.